Today's presentations are one in a series that has grown out of the book Open Pedagogy Approaches, a project led by Kim Hoffman, who is actually right there recording for us, if you can see, and Alexis Clifton. I don't know if you're here, Alexis. If not, waving would be fun. This book brings forward collaborations between faculty and librarians who develop educational approaches based in open educational resources and open pedagogy. Today's presentations grow out of the last section of the book, which specifically addresses open pedagogical design. Open pedagogy here refers to creating a course framework that is designed with flexibility in mind so that students might direct their learning and their learning processes as they work toward a particular end product. Open pedagogical design may or may not involve digital work or open educational resources. Importantly, however, it does adhere to the values of open pedagogy. So today we have two presentations by authors of chapters in Open Pedagogy Approaches. First, authors Anne Brown and Amanda MacDonald will present Open Pedagogical Practices to Train Undergraduates in the Research Process, a case study in course design and co-teaching strategies. Their work addresses the ongoing concern with familiarizing undergrads with the work of a researcher and draws on open pedagogy values to engage students in authentic research processes that are relevant across disciplines and are guided by their own interests. Anne Brown is an assistant professor and science informatics and health analytics coordinator at Virginia Tech, serving in university libraries. Her role is to collaborate with faculty and students on the integration of computational thinking and discipline-specific computational tools into the research labs and classrooms. Amanda MacDonald is the Undergraduate Research Services librarian at Virginia Tech. In her role, she serves as a liaison to the Office of Undergraduate Research, the Honors College, and the Departments of Human Development and Biological Sciences. Her work and research focus on creating openly accessible resources to support students and faculty engaging with formal undergraduate research experiences. I'm also going to give you a quick overview of our second presentation so that when we begin presentations, we'll move seamlessly from one to questions to the next. So for the second half of today's session, authors Laurie Taylor and Brian Keith will present Open Pedagogical Design for Graduate Student Internships, a new collaborative model. This presentation focuses on the Smathers Library's Graduate Internship Program, an innovative model that addresses the need for graduate education to develop experiences that open up diverse employment opportunities for grads. Laurie Taylor is the Senior Director for Library Technology and Digital Strategies, where she provides leadership for technology and partnerships with the University of Florida libraries across the university, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Her work is geared towards enabling a culture of radical collaboration that values and supports diversity, equity, and inclusion. Brian Keith is Associate Dean for Administration and Faculty Affairs at the George A. Smathers Libraries, University of Florida. Brian is a Senior Administrator for the areas of Human Resources, Staff Development, Grants Management, Facilities and Security, and Finance and Accounting. Brian's work enables the libraries to meet challenges while fostering transparency, fairness and inclusion, workplace and workforce development, and collaboration and partnerships. So the plan for the next hour is that each team of presenters will speak for about 15 to 20 minutes. Then we'll have about 5 minutes of questioning for each presentation team after each presentation. And then if time allows, we will end with discussion based on your additional questions, which might focus generally on issues related to both presentations. So what I ask is if you have a question, if you could put it into the chat, and that way we'll always know to look at the chat to monitor and make sure questions get answered as time permits. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our first team, Anne Brown and Amanda MacDonald. And I see you there. Nice to see you with all faces. And I'm thinking you might want to share your screen, and so there we go.
Everybody good to go? Wonderful. Well, thank you, Deborah, for that wonderful introduction. Myself and Amanda are very excited to be here today to talk to you about the research practices class that we currently teach here at Virginia Tech and how it's gone. This year will be our 5th time teaching this class, so we have a lot of experience now under our belt with how this class has gone. We're going to just talk about some of the framework behind it, the open approaches that we've utilized, and resources and outcomes that have occurred. So you can all see we're here on video, but we also have professional pictures sometimes. So myself, I'm Anne. You can reach me at my email, and Amanda is here as well for any resources or things that you need. And we'll also go ahead and have these at the end of the presentation as well. But hello from Virginia. We are from Virginia Tech. We're both in university libraries here. And Virginia Tech is a R01 institution. Go Hokies effectively for that. And we are looking to in the work that myself and Amanda do together is we're really looking to see how we can enhance the experience of students via undergraduate research here at the university. There's a big push for undergraduate research and other experiential learning experiences for students to take place at the university. It's part of the new QEP focus, which is the Quality Enhancement Plan, which is a required element of accreditation and reaffirmation processes at the university. And so since these are big initiatives that are ongoing at our university, it's probably frequent at other universities as well, given the high impact that these kinds of practices can have with students. It's really important in kind of how this class has come about and where it's going to see how can institutions be deliberate in how we train and engage students in the research process. Sometimes in the past, it's been a bit ad hoc and by discipline or by even just individual research experience that you're having. But we're really trying to think about how we can really holistically train students in the research process as well. That came to the need that higher level research training is needed earlier in the career. Oftentimes, some of the topics of general research literacy get missed when students join just an individual lab or field experience or any kind of thing like that, because it's very technique focused. And so we kind of came together to propose a class that we're going to talk about and all the details for it that would engage first year or second year students in the research process that's kind of part of the hidden research curriculum that exists. So we're talking about writing proposals, we're talking about IRBs, we're talking about research ethics, data management, and all those kinds of things that come about in the research process, but aren't necessarily always talked about very clearly given how desperate the experiences are for students. We really wanted this to be a solid foundation for students to then enter and perform research and know before they start if research is for them. So I think we can all agree sometimes that we get a little tired of writing grants maybe. So we really want to be upfront with that. We originally had gotten some pushback on that this should be for, third and fourth year students, but we really thought that this was something, if we frame this class well, if we really thought about our pedagogical approaches to it, we could offer this for first year students so it could really benefit them throughout their career here at the institution. And so we really had those best practices that we can iterate. So then it really came down to, we had some momentum behind this. How can we actually execute this? How can we structure an entry-level course that can be for all majors, which is another caveat here, to really train them in applied research literacy? So that's kind of where we're going and what our background was. Why did we want to then bring in concepts of an open pedagogy or have an open-based course? We really thought about that with what research is and the interdisciplinarity of research. By using the foundations of an open pedagogy approach, we could have flexibility there for the students to study something they were interested in across different disciplines and really kind of bring together strengths of a team, which happens in the research process. We also wanted to have open-ended problem exploration, because sometimes research is not just about doing, it's about creating, ideating, and taking things a next step forward. And even just crafting a research question authentically from the student, not from a professor, in terms of really going through that whole research life cycle. And so that open pedagogical design really fosters that, and that's how we have approached it in this class. We also have open enrollment to all students of all majors. And then we did integrate a couple OER resources here where our students are uploading all of their outcomes to our digital repository, VTech Works and Odyssey. And then some of the content that myself and Amanda have created are also openly accessible for other institutions to use. And I believe also our textbook was available as well, that we had as a background in the class as well. So that's kind of what our class is like, why we got to where we are, the way we've started to integrate open into that. And we'll kind of start going from there in terms of the theoretical framework. We started this with the basics of the Entering Research curriculum. That has a lot of great resources in it for teaching students research literacy. The elements from that we also incorporated included research data ethics, thinking about how to ideate the entire process of research. But we also did in this class, instead of this being, a passive class for students, we wanted students to actually engage in the process of research, being it be inquiry-based and problem-based. So each student at the very first day of class is going to be assigned a final project and a final presentation they have to do, and they use that throughout the entire course to complete all the different assignments that build up to a completed research proposal. And so that was really a nice way to bring in that inquiry and problem-based learning into our approach to this course. Last thing, we kind of bringing in some of the other aspects here for Kolb's cycle of experiential learning. This is really also the way of learning by doing. And so really that concrete experience where they're having to develop their own research questions, have active experimentation where they're having to collect or find data in some way to support a hypothesis or a claim, was a part of that, and really was what we used to guide how we organized and framed the class. Some of these things that we've now taught within this class can be pulled apart and be integrated in different ways, but it really, as a whole class, came together quite nicely for the deliverables and to have an open approach to it. All right, and then I'm going to turn it to Amanda to talk more about what this class looks like and how we were able to offer it.
Thanks so much. Okay, sorry, I went through that last slide pretty quickly, but it just said overview of course. So what I want to talk about now is thinking about this course structure. So Anne told us a lot about our thoughts behind it and pedagogically why we made decisions. So now we're going to move to what the class actually looks like. So thinking about this class, it was structured as a 3-credit-hour, 1-semester course that we teach every spring semester. As Anne mentioned, we really wanted this class by design to be open to undergraduate students of all majors and all levels, but we really did design it with that first and second year student in mind. That doesn't mean that we couldn't allow, a junior or senior in this class, but we really wanted to have this class as something that students took early on in their career, developed these skills, and then hopefully engage in formal undergraduate research or whatever research makes sense to them in their interest following this class. Because this class was open to students of all majors, student research groups could contain students from a variety of majors. That means that we're creating a space for multidisciplinary teams within this course. So for example, one of the student groups included students majoring in human development, human nutrition, food and exercise science, and communication and journalism. And so what that shows us is that students come from a lot of different interests, backgrounds, skill sets, and knowledge. And I think that really gives them the advantage of coming together, working together, deciding on roles within the teams, how they'll function, the types of work they can do. And it's worked, again, really, really well. This also means that we don't assume, because students could be hopefully first or second year students, but really students of any major and any level, we don't assume any specific skill sets or experiences or knowledge that they would have to bring to this class. We really want to start at the base level and give them a foundation and a chance to really excel together from the start. So far, we've offered this class in honors and non-honors sections, as Anne mentioned, so we've done it in both contexts. The course learning objectives, with a few slight variations, the objectives, just like the course, are really planned with the research life cycle in mind. And so what you can see is that we start with having students pose questions, hopefully authentic questions that they really want to answer, and we move to identifying common approaches for solving these problems, again, making sure that it's not just like one solution, but that open problem solving that we're keeping in mind here. And we move all the way to having students think about things like limitations in their project and producing that poster, presenting it, disseminating their research. So it really does try to go through the entire cycle. To give you a look at our course schedule. So as you can see, the schedule is set so students can always see when something is being assigned, when something is due, plus that agenda that we're going to cover that day in class. And we do this on purpose. So hopefully students will, again, start seeing that this course does take that natural cycle of research for them. So we start with things like becoming a researcher. What is research? What is undergraduate research? What does it mean to start thinking about and seeing yourself as someone who has that potential to be a researcher? Through developing a topic, working on teams, you can see that we move to finding scholarly literature. So it really does take that natural cycle in the class. And then thinking about the connection to research development through assignments. So as you can see here, we really think about having these skill development happen through authentic assignments, thinking about what students would encounter if they were doing actual research in a lab or other type of research setting. So if we look at the role of ethics, for example, we will discuss ethics in class. We'll have students work through case studies, which is fairly common. And then students will have an ethical issues to consider prompt where they think through a variety of scenarios and thinking about ethics and how they might make decisions, all the way through diving more deeply into that ethics in their assignments themselves. So thinking about what types of ethical considerations they have to make within their own research projects and proposals. So to give you an idea of the assignments that we cover throughout the semester, just like the entire class, as I keep really emphasizing, is based on the research life cycle. So we have students start with in groups developing authentic research topics and questions, and then we move to that citation list because, of course, you have to do research to figure out who's already said something. What else do we need to be said about this particular topic? And then the annotated bibliography builds on that, but there's flexibility. So if students have some sources that aren't great in that citation list, they make some adjustments. They look for more sources that are more fitting based on what they know now. Then they end up writing an abstract. They think again about those ethical issues and finally move to that poster and that proposal. So the progression of the concepts throughout this course, we really see these assignments as culminating all the way up to that research proposal and poster. So students complete this variety of assignments in this order and hopefully continue to naturally learn more about their topics, about research, about the research process. And to prepare them for the final, we really see each of these topics feeding into the next, and that there's this continual kind of open discussion, open dialogue between the instructors and the student, and between the students and their group mates and the students and the class. So a lot of peer-to-peer feedback, a lot of instructor to student feedback is really key and crucial to this class, to making sure that students continue to ask questions and continue to delve deeper into their research projects. So I'll hand it back to Anne to show you some examples.
Yes, and so some example. I'm sorry, everyone, my Zoom was a little frozen. I hope you can hear me. Good. Okay. And so one of the things I also want to comment from Amanda is we've actually had students talk to us and tell us everything that we were doing. It seemed like we had planned it this way for each step that we were going through. When we had done annotated bibliographies, when we had done citations, they're like, it's like you planned it. I'm like, well, yes, we did plan this out this way. And so we got some really cool output to show you all. And these are all available in VTech Works, but we wanted to just show you the breadth of topics that we have here in this class. And these are all things students have picked and things that myself and Amanda have no expertise in except the process of research. So we have one here, and you can see here at the top of each one of them the different majors that contributed, where they looked at mussels in the Chesapeake Bay. Fantastic for them to think about more about filtration and microplastics. How we looked at different kinds of prison systems and looking at how mental health care in prison systems were affected. Prison systems have been a big interest topic for students for some reason. Each year we've taught this class, a group has been interested in studying prison systems in some capacity. So we thought that was very interesting for our students, that was a topic they were really committed to. And then our last one to kind of highlight and mention is on looking at how we can understand pseudoscience, so misinformation. Students want to know more about how we can combat misinformation and fake news and learn about that from a variety of majors. And so a lot of this, as we kind of then look at the different aspects here, and these are all posters, and you can see that all of the uniqueness from all the students coming through here is we couldn't have done this without the collaboration we had within libraries and within the domains that we have to really teach our students. And Amanda is going to jump into that, about that collaboration and how it started.
Great, thank you so much. I did want to add, just as the librarian hat, the fake news one was really interesting because, I think students are often surprised to have a librarian as a teacher. And then working with them, I was like, well, this is something librarians are really interested in. And they were like, what is information literacy? So it really led to some neat discussions on that part. So looking at the collaboration, so that library partnership, as you might expect, partnering with the library, as a librarian, of course, I'm going to say this is always a great idea. But I think for the instructors and for the students, everyone really benefited. At the start of this course, the library was already offering a co-curricular workshop series called the Advanced Research Skills Series. I might call it ARS. And that really helped to introduce students to information, data, research, digital literacy. Plus, we were doing some, other traditional types of library support, instruction, consultations, collection development, embedded librarianship. So thinking about the different collaborator roles and contributions in this project, as we mentioned in the introductions, Anne is the faculty member from University Libraries with a doctoral degree in biochemistry. And then who's not here speaking with us, but who is a key part is Dr. Stephanie Lewis, and she's with the Honors College. She also has a doctoral degree in genetics, bioinformatics, and computational biology. And then me, Amanda, I am with University Libraries as the undergraduate research librarian, and I also have 2 master's degrees, one in English studies and one in library science. So as you can see, our backgrounds, our experiences are very different. And just like the students and having different backgrounds, our backgrounds really kind of helped us to all be able to contribute to this course development in a way that I think was unique and made sense to all of us to, collaborate together. So thinking about that resource integration, as I mentioned, that workshop series, ARS, was really about student engagement and having students originally take it co-curricularly. So when we moved that workshop series from in-person to online, that ended up making it so much easier for us when we started working on this class, because then we were able to implement these open resources that we had created in that process. So I already had a bunch of modules that made sense, a bunch of learning objects, all of them, like we've said, are openly accessible. To integrate those right in the class was almost seamless and very, very helpful to us. To tell you a little bit more about that content, this originally was a 7-week, 6-workshop comprehensive online undergraduate research series that was open to students of all levels of any major, where they can practice high-level research skills. And it was really just like the class designed with that research life cycle in mind, so to give students that holistic look at research. The workshops that we originally offered were using data ethically, managing and organizing data, managing and organizing information, writing successful proposals, sharing your research, and becoming a researcher. So thinking about this class, originally we just had the modules in there. In the spring and the summer, we started for the workshop series integrating digital badging or digital credentialing. And so this spring, we're going to integrate that into the classes as well that have these workshops that are already integrated in it. So the students will take the class, they'll dig deeper than the students just in the workshop, but everyone will get a badge. And then to give you an idea of where you can find those openly accessible objects, there are 2 different repositories. The first one, run by University Libraries, is the Learning Object Repository known as Odyssey, which you can find at odyssey.vt.edu. And I have an entire undergraduate research collection in there, and you can just see 2 screenshots, designing your poster or writing more effective abstracts. These were both items that I made for that series that we've integrated into the course. And then looking at our scholarly repository, this is where you can find our students' academic work. So like we said, we have all of their work open so others can see it. This repository is known as VTechWorks, and you can find it at vtechworks.lib.vt.edu. So I think we can pause for a few minutes now. I can stop my screen share, but if there are questions, we have a few minutes to answer questions before we hand it over to Laurie and Brian.
So I'll start off with a question while people are thinking of questions they might want to put into the chat. So I was intrigued by the comment that didn't know much about the topics. And I wondered if you could say a little bit about the advantages and maybe disadvantages of that.
Yeah, sure. We can definitely comment on that. So one, we are really lucky. I have a little bit more of a science background. Amanda has a humanities background, so we could very well at least have some broad coverage. But it really let us come to the students and say, I'm an expert in this, and I know this, and this is how the research process goes. I don't know anything about muscles. And let's think about all the different aspects you need to consider about muscles, because you are also new to this topic and you are going to become the expert on this project because this is your project. And so we use that kind of messaging and like mentality to project that through, so they knew that the detail they needed to learn their topic in, and how when you are doing a research project, you are the expert of that project, no matter what the field. And so that let us ask good questions too. So if we were an outside reviewer or things like that, we can really ask the questions that get to the nitty gritty of the science, not necessarily the actual how muscles biological functions occur. And I think that really showed them that's how the process of science works, and how research works in a lot of different environments and ways.
That's great. Thank you. So I now see MN. Would you like to ask your question?
Oh, thank you. I think the workshop is very amazing, but I'm wondering what kind of barriers or challenges the students met during this workshop. Thank you so much.
So when you're saying workshop, do you mean the workshop series that we originally used to offer, or do you mean the challenges just working through the process within the class?
I mean the class process.
Yeah, I think, and Anne may have different things to share in this. I think for me, I think some of the biggest challenges are seeing that, especially when students come from a lot of different majors, seeing that, you know, there are a lot of different roles that we can play on a team. And you might have someone who's like on your team and that person's a journalism major or an English major, and you're somehow doing some research that's more in the heavy sciences. And so at first it might be like hard for you to see where this person's going to contribute. And then all of a sudden we're writing, you know, introductions and abstracts and citations and full reports. And you've got this person who's a writer on your team who's done a lot of research. So I think it's helping students see that, like, having students come from different majors with different experiences, different class backgrounds, different backgrounds in general, if you can really work together and figure out where your strengths lie and develop and assign these roles early on, then it makes the whole process of working with new people a lot easier. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is having students realize that, like, yes, you might have this English major on your STEM project and you're going to be so glad you do. So it's that, I think, for me was the biggest one, is helping them get over that hurdle.
I wholly agree with Amanda. I think that is a huge part of it. The other one is that how much writing is involved in research. It's not always just doing, and you have to plan. And that fact that you have to plan it all out to every detail before you do it is also a big thing that students don't recognize. And so they really see the implications of why we have to do that, especially if they're anything with human subjects and stuff like that. That's usually an eye opener for them, that they have to do it. And that's why we're doing things the way we're doing them.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to say thank you very much, Amanda and Anne, and we'll have time again to return to questions for both presentations. And I'd like to now turn it over to Laurie Taylor and Brian Keefe, and welcome you as you talk about Open Pedagogical Design for Graduate Student Internships.
Yes, excellent. Thanks so much for having us, and thanks for a fantastic presentation. We're looking forward to more discussion at the end. I'm Laurie Taylor.
I'm Brian Keefe.
And yes, so we wanted to say thanks to the editors and all contributors to this important and timely volume. Thanks for everyone for being here. And we wanted to thank our many University of Florida Library Academic Unit and student colleagues whose really impressive works are reflected in our talk.
Yeah, thanks for getting us started, Laurie. So in this talk, Laurie and I are going to introduce a library-wide system-wide graduate student internship program that we collaboratively designed and launched in 2015. We're at the University of Florida, and on this slide, there's some brief statistics on the University of Florida. There's 16 colleges, including 5 that are health related. We have 52,000 students. It's a very large, wonderful campus located in North Central Florida, though we have locations throughout the state, and our land grant, sea grant space grant. And the University of Florida is one of the most comprehensive universities in the United States in terms of its graduate level degree offering programs. And Laurie and I are both experienced teachers. We design our classes to ensure students gain skills, portable knowledge, and experience in communication and collaboration. As you heard in our introduction, we're also library administrators. We have broader programmatic responsibilities and leadership roles. And in these, we've also worked with student volunteers and interns. In these environments, we see fantastic work and learning outcomes for students. At the same time, we saw a system in the libraries of uneven support for internship directors. Too often they served this role in administrative isolation, where too often they had to create orientations, seek grants or other sources of funding, and invest intensive work in addition to the work of leading and mentoring interns. The prior ad hoc approach to internships disadvantaged potential directors with the additional work requirements. Internships, as a result, often lacked consistent supports, experiences, and well-defined learning and experiential outcomes for the interns as workers and students. At the same time, the post-university employment challenges for graduate students had become increasingly difficult. Within the nexus of library and graduate student needs, the innovative Smathers Graduate Student Internship Program sought to remake graduate student internships within libraries through a design based on collaboration with teaching department faculty and library faculty. Through this program, librarians propose and lead internships based upon identified and specific needs for projects and outcomes. This work is in collaboration with teaching faculty. With the new model for institutionally integrated, formalized program, the structures and process are enabling more impactful outcomes for interns, internships, directors, and collaborators, with final work that can be showcased publicly by students and that benefits the library and its communities. We have observed tremendous benefits to internships directors in the libraries, from supports for onboarding and orientation for the interns, supports for their needs in developing the internship and handling problems when they arose, and for the overall outcomes and results for the internships with a more stable and simpler process for their work. The program follows Open Pedagogical Design. We ascribe three major considerations to this approach: flexibility, formal structures to support transparency and procedural justice, and openly available work produced by and for the students. Our framing in open pedagogy includes feminism and critical pedagogy. As Christopher Newfield explains, the greatest value of higher education is for the community and in the form of non-market and social benefits. Yet the shift to privatization forces students and institutions to focus on individual concerns and the maximization of their own economic self-interest, because the converting of public funding into higher tuition focuses the student on assuring her future income to cover higher costs and debt. This shift involves redefining the educated person and reducing the full range of personal goals to the economic. Most forms of individual progress are non-economic: to become happier, clearer about the meaning of one's life, less emotionally confused, more creative, more coherently prepared for meaningful work. As teachers, our pedagogical work is deeply informed by our professional and personal ethics, where we seek to support our students, including for their very real economics needs, as well as to counter the devolutionary cycle of privatization of higher education. Our work thus includes finding ways to support our students and colleagues and communities as individuals and as members of our collective communities and society, and positioning them to attain future goals and accomplishments. When we began, we recognized that the library's decentralized model needed more structure to ensure student interns had support, and that the workers in the libraries directing the internships had guidance, including articulated standards. Further, for procedural justice and equity, the libraries needed a program that provided systematic consistent, coherent, accessible support for potential internship directors and interns, resulting in just and intentional outcomes. At the same time, any new support had to provide for the space for exploration, which is inherent in mastery learning and mentoring processes. We took these considerations into account in designing this program. Collaborators within the libraries and in teaching departments came together to develop the new internship program. This process had to be as transparent as possible to gather feedback and insight to best develop the program, ensuring that the program could meet all needs. In developing the program based on these considerations, we identified needs and goals for different stakeholders. The first of these are students, and they need a portfolio of work experience based on the application of their discipline-specific expertise. They need collaborative work experience, skill development, paid work, and collaborators and colleagues. Library faculty need collaborators in teaching departments, collaborators from their own work units, and collaborators to support students together, opportunities to change campus culture and foster new relationships through collaboration that is deeply grounded in local expertise and practice. But they also needed programmatic supports for students as workers and for their students to engage in learning. And they also needed funding opportunities for paying students a fair wage. The third stakeholder is the teaching faculty. They also need collaborators, in this case in the libraries. They need collaborators for their own work, collaborators to support students, and opportunities to also contribute to a change in campus culture and foster new relationships through this collaboration. They need this collaboration to be deeply grounded in local expertise and practices as well. They also need programmatic supports for students as workers and for their learning. And they were also in need of funding opportunities for paying students a fair wage. We implemented a full program and process supports with details in our chapter in the volume. With these to support a flexible structure, each internship could be uniquely customized to meet the needs for student learning and also for the project. While each faculty team might propose very different projects and goals, the program provides a framework to ensure the open pedagogical design aligns with the goals and needs of all stakeholders.
Yeah, and so then again, to go over some of the project examples, again, we're looking at flexibility with formalized structures, making sure that they're paid a living wage, and focusing on, and also including openly available work and job outcomes. So with the program supporting open pedagogical design, the examples all vary really widely in the theme and the process for this specific work, while all are then supported by the framework. So some of the examples include, some of the photos here are some of the interns who've gone through the program. And topic examples include innovative library technologies, visual anthropology, Florida and Puerto Rico newspaper project, working on educational materials, lesson plans that meet the state of Florida Sunshine State guidelines so they can be implemented K through 12. Bioinformatics, developing a science fiction portal, an exhibit on Black education in Florida, architecture archives, online exhibitions, working on a Myers-Briggs collection bibliography, a public relations campaign for the libraries, movable and toy books, and our Baldwin Library of Historical Children's Literature. Preservation, working on resources in Spanish and English, a Cuban bibliography project, working on digital as public humanities, library publishing with online journals, new technology with 3D printing, Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, data management, Government House, which is actually a collection in St. Augustine, about an hour and a half from Gainesville, working with their archives, literary manuscripts, collaborative grant seeking, assessment, and working with the Digital Library of the Caribbean on digital pedagogy, another one on digital scholarship, another on instructional design, and another on children's literature. So the forms of these really, or the content of these really varied quite widely. One of the project examples is from visual anthropology. And the goals stated in the proposal include providing a needed opportunity for an anthropology graduate student to put research into practice and to collect and analyze visual social media data to better understand how students view their library experience and utilize library spaces and resources. This was a really fascinating project. So the Visual Anthropology Graduate Student Partnership with the libraries analyzed different sources, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, things that were publicly available where students were talking about the libraries. And in doing this, the libraries, which many of us have thought of our libraries as the second home for our students, this is their other place. Learning from the students, we heard that this is their first home. This is their primary space. Their dorm rooms, their complicated apartments with roommates, those were not their first spaces, the libraries were. And so understanding what that means for how we work with students and engage with them was a really important and exciting finding. For another example of an internship, working on the Cuban Thinkers Bibliography and Digital Humanities project. This included student-led work to develop a bibliography and a timeline for important Cuban intellectuals in the 19th century. The student learned a bit of WordPress, Timeline.js for making the timeline, and critical bibliography skills as applied into a DH project that also moves forward the accessibility corpus of text by Cuban intellectuals. And so looking at, those are just two of the many project examples. Looking at the outputs from the program, we have the program itself as a case or a model for open pedagogical design with the resulting student-developed projects that are openly accessible online. The program also fills gaps in libraries and graduate education for professional and paid internships. The program statistics, we've served 44 students, 74 semesters of work, and $185,000 in paid work at a living wage. So tremendous impact, and we have more internship. We've got the call out for proposals that are open now. We'll be reserving more by the committee in March, and so reviewing and more awards will be coming. And for outcomes, we've had multiple graduate student interns have accepted faculty or professional positions in libraries and academic institutions. We also have a new undergraduate student fellowship program. The first two fellows were in spring 2020, and the libraries have changed our ways of working. So just to emphasize the importance of these in terms of outcomes, based on the resounding success of the change implemented with the internship program, the committee was charged to create the new undergraduate student fellowship program to expose students to career opportunities in academic libraries focusing on diversity, and with the goal of contributing to the diversity of the field. We hosted our first two fellows in spring 2020, and we're about to open the call again for the next set of fellows. And we've also seen, in terms of outcomes in our student job postings, when possible, the regular work student job postings have been reframed as internships. So people are explicitly looking at how we benefit the student as a worker. And this has been done on a number of grants and other projects. But the National Endowment for the Humanities, Digital Humanities Institute, we have student workers working on that, where it has been framed as internships. It's not just what do they do in terms of work output, but how does this benefit them, their learning and educational process. Also with the Digital Library of the Caribbean as data project. UF has also hosted multiple ARL Fellowship for Digital and Inclusive Excellence recipients. All of this interaction, all of this teaching, mentoring, working within a formalized structure, and then the flexibility for open pedagogy, it's changed our way of working. And all of this has been made possible and enhanced by the core considerations for the internship program in relation to open pedagogy, for flexibility, formal structures that support transparency and procedural justice, and openly available work produced by and for students. So really excited to have been able to share an overview of our program with you. We have the program information is available online. All of the awarded internship proposals are listed, and also our slides. So we wanted to, and again, thank you to the editors for this really important volume and the other contributors to the volume, and to all of our internship folks, all of the interns, all of the internship directors, all of the faculty collaborators.
So thank you very much, Laurie and Brian. Again, I'm going to invite questions on for particularly this presentation for about 5 minutes, and then we can open it up more broadly. And while people are thinking, I wonder if I'm just imagining, I work a lot with grad students, that there must have been many reflective moments for grad students as they began to rethink their career goals and their possibilities. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how much you felt this was really changing career paths and how it affected overall kinds of placements. So I saw broadly that they're getting faculty positions, but how is it changing their trajectories, if at all?
some of them we're still seeing, that some of the interns are still in the process, but so many of them gave us feedback, including like, oh, I didn't realize that libraries were like this. I didn't understand that this is how I could do teaching. So we've had a number of folks who've gone on to, even if they go on to like traditional teaching positions, the way that they teach is different. Oh, I can do digital pedagogy with my students. I can ask my students to create something that's openly accessible online, because the way that the students react to that work is very different. When they can show it to their friends, their boyfriend, their cousin, their parents, student work takes on a whole nother level of meaning. We've also had so many students that are like, wait, this is how libraries work? This is what a job is like? Because we've seen over time so much tremendous pressure, like, oh, there's only the plan A, which can only be the tenure track teaching faculty position. We've seen great discussions on that with ALTAC, Plan B, other named initiatives that support people in understanding a good job is a good job, and it can take many forms. But this put so many students at ease. They were like, this is what working is like? Yeah, working in a good environment. It's highly collaborative, it's fun. And so it just really opened students up to many job possibilities. So we've seen students go into NGOs and other things with a different level of comfortability and support. Brian, did you also want to? I'm hogging.
No, one thing I wanted to say as part of the orientation that takes place throughout the semester is a presentation about alternative career paths. And that's done in partnership with a colleague of ours who was in the Career Development Center for the university, who's now in the honors department and our honors program. And so your question's right on with a core principle of the program, which is to introduce thoughts about different sorts of ways of using these skills and introducing these people into our work environments with their own discipline-specific expertise has also changed in some instances the way in which we think about approaches to our own work. So it's been in the other direction as well.
So I thank you very much. That's let me invite people to ask questions either about this presentation, about connections across the presentation, about the first one. Anything else? For the fun of it, I can ask questions all day. So I'll ask another one as we are waiting here. So do you think this could be a model at all for undergrads?
You're talking about the graduate student program?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the ways in which I work with our career folks here, and they also are emphasizing some of the things you're emphasizing. So I just wondered if this could serve as a model in some ways for undergrads as well.
Well, as everyone in this Zoom meeting would know, librarians are very creative people. And so where we start generally, often the intern is not identified. It's the need and the project. And then we hire someone for that. And very early on, some very talented undergraduates began to apply for these and evidence that they had skills that, would make these projects successful. And so very early on, we had to kind of put in that if you were an upperclassman, you could be eligible. And so not only is it possible, but it quickly became, a feature. But it's still generally geared towards graduate students, and that's, I would say, the most typical. But we do see undergraduates, and they do quite well.
Thank you.
I chime in for just 1 second real quick? So I love everything you guys are doing, Brian and Laurie. I think that's so great for the libraries to support. And we have something similar we're working on here since myself and Amanda also do so much with undergrad research. And we have an undergrad program that has undergrads doing research in the libraries too. If anyone's interested, I can pop a link to some information in the chat. But it's so important, and really thinking about how libraries can engage in this process and should be engaging in this process to really foster this throughout the university, and to have partnerships and to have more human power, just to be able to do all the things that are needed, because a lot of our services, especially in the group I'm in with data services, there's a lot more need for a lot of just back end, just data collection, data cleaning that people need help with. And it's a great training way for students as well. So really great synergy between all the things I think we've talked about today.
Here we go. So Paola Corti, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you. And first of all, thank you for sharing those incredibly interesting experiences, because I've listened to you very carefully and I think that you made a great job. So thank you. I was wondering, I also see in both the experiences you shared a lot of soft skills involved, and I think this is very useful for students because they are all required in their future jobs. Any choice they do, they will need all those soft skills, also in team working and sharing and being able to build on the work of one another. I was wondering if those learning paths that you organized are officially recognized by your universities or part of the students' official curriculum, or are they, let's say, available and still recognized, or just available? And students can choose to jump in or not, but it's not something that your university recognizes, because this is usually what happens. Some people organize great learning path, but universities don't officially give credits for them. Thank you.
Just to jump in first, for the Smathers Graduate Internship Program, we modeled it because we wanted it to be in libraries in partnership with teaching faculty, so it exactly follows the semester schedule. So it is 16 weeks, it is 10 hours per week. So we modeled it off of the semester schedule and what you would normally do for an internship, to make sure if the student said, hey, I do want to get credit for this, that it was easily available. And we regularly do that paperwork as well. So that also builds the capacity within the libraries for understanding what the internship paperwork or the different flexible credit, research credit hours are, to make sure that our folks understood that, even if they hadn't taught before. So it's building up that capacity for all of us collaborating and working together. We have had students take it for credit classes. We've also had students, so officially, that matches to an internship or what are the research credit. It varies based on the different departments, what those 3 credit blocks are, but it is equivalent to a 3 credit hour experience. Then we've also had students who say, I don't need credits for it, I don't want to do that paperwork, but I do need it for the certificate program that I'm doing. Like I want to get the Digital Humanities Graduate Certificate, and this can count as one of the class. It counts as the experience that's necessary for like the breadth or depth of experience.
Thank you very much.
And I can comment from the undergraduate perspective on that as well. So with Anne and I, our work, so this class we've taught as a special studies course the last few years, and we're in the process of going through governance with hope that this will go well, and this class will be part of the curriculum. And then in addition to that, Anne is working on some paperwork through governance also, with the hopes that this class will be a required course as part of a minor for our Pathways General Education curriculum. So there are a lot of moving parts, but we're in the process of moving from special studies to a course that could be in the curriculum. And then thinking just about the library workshop series, that is, of course, co-curricular, but it feeds into the university's undergraduate research excellence program, which is also like co-curricular, but our way of recognizing students at graduation who do undergraduate research. So these programs do complement one another in that way as well.
Thank you.
All right. MN, would you like to ask your questions?
Yes, thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is for the undergraduate library workshop. I'm wondering, is there any disadvantages for the undergraduates to expose to the research process in their early study stage? My second question is for the graduate student library workshop. I want to confirm that whether the graduate student workshop only contributes to the students find the job in the library position. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Anne will have something else to add to this, but at my previous institution, when I was working with undergraduate research, one of the frustrations that students had is that they would take the workshop series and absolutely want to mentor, but then have trouble finding that research position. So they'd have the desire and then the struggle to actually find that. It seems like there are more opportunities here at VT for students to do research, but that is the one thing that I have had experience with in the past, was just that I've taken this, I've built these skills, I'm ready to go, but like we have a lot of the student to faculty ratio, not every single student is going to be able to get that one-on-one time. So I think I could see that as being one of the challenges, is that could be frustrating for students.
And we try to tell them that ahead of time as well, that it's not a guarantee. But in the actual process of both the workshop and the class, we tell them, use what you're learning to help get yourself a position. Use it in your emails that you're sending out to market yourself. Amanda's gotten the digital credentialing and things like that. So use all of that to your advantage. And I hope it has some impact, because it shows the dedication the students have to.
So I'm going to say just a tremendous thank you to our author presenters, and also to let you know, and I think Kim has, the slide. There we go. So a huge thank you, and to invite everyone to continue this conversation in our next presentation in a couple of days at 2 p.m. So I really hope to see everybody there, but I especially appreciated today's presentation. So thank you.